My wife cheated on me with our lawyer, stole $250, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with her new lover, then lied about it all until I found her secret ledger. And now she's suing me for custody and claiming I manipulated her to get the money. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, it felt like I was living in some bad soap opera. One day, I was just going about my usual routine, working late, picking up groceries, trying to keep everything afloat, when suddenly everything shattered in a way I couldn't have predicted. The most unexpected moment. Finding out that my wife, Lisa, had been cheating on me with our lawyer, Tom. Not only that, but she'd stolen $250,000 from our joint account to buy a house with him. Yeah, I know. It sounds like something out of a crime drama, but that's exactly what happened. Lisa and I had been married for 8 years. We had our ups and downs like any couple, but I thought we were solid. She was always a bit bitchy, kind of a diva at times, but she loved her life. And I believed she loved me. We had a nice house, good jobs, 2 kids, things looked perfect from the outside. But I started noticing little things that didn't add up. She was more secretive with her phone, hiding her screen when I walked into the room. She'd leave her laptop open and quickly close it when I got near. She started working late more often, claiming she had cases to close, even when I knew her firm wasn't that busy. Then came the financial weirdness. I'd always handled the bills and savings, but suddenly there were transactions I didn't recognize. Small charges at first, nothing big, just odd subscriptions or online orders. I brushed it off, thinking maybe I was just paranoid. But then I stumbled across a ledger she kept tucked away in her drawer, filled with notes about secret accounts, investments, and a line about the house with Tom. That was a red flag I should have paid more attention to, but I didn't. I was too busy trying to keep everything normal. One night, I came home early from work because I wasn't feeling well. I decided to look through her purse, something I'd never done before, and I found her phone unlocked. I saw a message thread with Tom loaded with flirtatious texts, plans to meet, and even some explicit talk about sex. My stomach sank. It was all there right in front of me. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. That was the moment I knew for sure something was wrong, no, worse than wrong. My wife had been lying to my face for months, probably longer. I didn't confront her immediately. I needed to think. I kept quiet that night, trying to process what I'd seen. But the next day I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep living in denial. When I asked her about the messages, she spun a wild story. She said Tom was just a client, that she never cheated, and that I was overreacting. She called me paranoid, accused me of mistrusting her, and tried to make me feel guilty for accusing her of something she swore was innocent. But I knew better. I had the evidence, and I was furious. What made it worse was her outright lies. She said she only met Tom for legal advice, that they'd never crossed the line into anything physical. But I knew what I saw. Those texts, the late nights, the way she'd suddenly become evasive about her phone, none of it added up. And then I found the ledger detailing how she transferred money from our joint account into a secret account, then used that to put a down payment on a house with Tom. I couldn't believe it. She stolen our savings, lied through her teeth, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the crazy one. Emotionally, I was a mess. Shock, anger, betrayal, those were just the start. I felt like I'd been punched so hard I couldn't breathe. I kept asking myself how she could do this to me, to our kids. I wondered if I'd missed the signs, if I'd been blind or stupid. The trust I'd had in her was shattered, replaced by a deep, gnawing bitterness. I kept replaying the moments when she said she loved me, when she promised she'd never hurt me. All lies, every single one. I felt so betrayed, I didn't know how to even look at her anymore without feeling rage, but I also felt helpless. What could I do? I didn't want to believe she'd actually stolen that much money, but the evidence was there. I knew I needed to act fast if I wanted to stop her from completely destroying what was left of our family. I started thinking about the bigger picture, what this meant for our kids, for our future. The betrayal wasn't just about the affair. It was about her stealing from us, lying for months, and now trying to spin it into some kind of victim story. I was furious, but I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I had to decide what I was going to do next, and I knew that whatever I chose, my life would never be the same again. After that night, everything changed. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't focus. All I kept thinking about was the money, the house, her lies, and how she'd managed to keep this secret for so long. The betrayal cut deep. I started digging into the financials myself, pulling bank statements, looking for anything she might have missed. It was like peeling back layers of a lie she'd carefully constructed. And the more I looked, the more I found out. She transferred over $250, $0 from our joint account into a secret account she'd set up. That's $250,000, money we'd worked hard for, money I thought was safe. She'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. I found emails and receipts that showed she'd been shopping for a house with Tom, an actual house, not just some fantasy. It was a nice place not far from here, and she'd been sneaking around buying furniture, making arrangements, all behind my back. It was like she'd been living a double life, and I was just the fool who didn't see it. I felt sick. How could she do this? How could she lie about something so huge, so destructive? I knew I had to confront her again, but this time with even more evidence. I called her at work, told her I knew everything. Her reaction was classic Lisa, defensive, bitchy, dismissive. She told me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was just jealous of her success with Tom. She said I was manipulative for asking her about the money, that I was trying to control her. I couldn't believe her. She looked me straight in the eyes and lied through her teeth, claiming she'd never cheated, never stole a cent, but I had proof. Her ledger, her bank transfers, the texts, all of it was undeniable. That day I felt a mix of rage and despair. I was furious she lied to my face, but I was also heartbroken. I loved her, or at least I thought I did. Seeing how easily she'd betrayed me, how she'd manipulated everything, made me question everything. I wondered how many other lies she'd told, what else she'd hidden. I felt betrayed not just as her husband, but as a fool who trusted the woman he married. I kept asking myself, why? Why did she do this? Was it just about the money? Or was it about something deeper, her need to feel powerful, to have control, to live out some fantasy with her lawyer lover? I started to realize I couldn't just sweep this under the rug. I couldn't pretend everything was fine anymore. I needed to protect myself and our kids. I started looking into legal options, thinking about divorce, about how to get back the money, how to stop her from doing more damage. She kept insisting she was the victim, that I was the one manipulating her, that she was just trying to build a new life with Tom because I was so controlling and distant. That was her go-to story. She'd twist everything around to make herself the innocent victim. But I saw through her bullshit now. The truth was clear. She'd been cheating, stealing, lying, and she was trying to cover her ass with more lies. The emotional toll was heavy. I felt like I was living in a nightmare. I'd loved her, trusted her, built a life with her. And now I saw her for what she really was, a liar, a thief, a manipulator. The worst part, she was still trying to gaslight me, telling me I was paranoid, that I was imagining things, that I was the one causing all the problems. She even accused me of trying to control her, which was laughable considering how she'd been controlling everything behind my back. I didn't know how to respond anymore. Part of me wanted to fight, to expose her lies and take back what was mine, but another part just wanted to crawl into a hole and hide. I started documenting everything, saving emails, taking screenshots of her bank statements, writing down every detail. I knew I had to be prepared for whatever came next. I wasn't going to let her destroy me or our family without a fight. The more I uncovered, the clearer it became that I couldn't trust her anymore. She'd spun this web of deception so tight I didn't know where the truth ended and her lies began. But I was done being the fool. I was done being played. I remember sitting in the living room, staring at the ledger I'd found, feeling numb. All the love I had for her, all the dreams of our future seemed so distant now. I thought about the kids, about how they'd be affected by all of this. I knew I had to make a decision soon, whether to fight for my marriage or cut my losses and move on. But whatever I chose, I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful road. The betrayal had cut so deep, I wasn't sure if I'd ever heal from it. All I knew was I couldn't let her get away with it. Not this time. The next few days were a blur of planning and trying to stay sane. I spent every free minute digging into her accounts, trying to piece together exactly how much she'd taken and where it all went. The ledger was just the start. I subpoenaed bank records, tracked transfers, and started building a timeline. It was crazy how much she'd hidden behind fake names, shell companies, and secret accounts. She'd really gone all out to cover her tracks. Every time I thought I had it all figured out, I'd find another hidden account or a new transfer. It was like peeling an onion, layer after layer of lies. I knew I had to get legal advice. I contacted a lawyer I knew from work, someone who specialized in family law and financial crimes. When I explained everything, his face tightened. He told me I had a solid case for divorce, for freezing her assets, and for recovering the stolen money. But he also warned me it wouldn't be easy. Lisa was a manipulative woman. She'd probably try to spin this as me being abusive or controlling, just like she'd done with her lies about the affair. That's her playbook, twist everything around to make herself the victim. Meanwhile, Lisa kept up her act of innocence. She'd come home, act like nothing was wrong, and throw her usual bitchy attitude around. She'd say things like, "You're just jealous," or "You don't trust me, that's why you're accusing me of everything." She even had the audacity to claim she was the one being manipulated, by Tom, by me, by everyone. She'd cry, scream, and accuse me of destroying her reputation, all while I knew she was the one behind the scenes secretly planning her escape. I was furious, but I stayed calm. I knew losing my temper wouldn't help. I had to be strategic. One day, I found out she'd scheduled a meeting with her lawyer, her own lawyer, I assumed, to prepare her defense. That's when I decided I had to act fast. I went to the bank and froze her accounts, including the secret one I'd just uncovered. I didn't want her to move the money again or hide anything more. I also filed for emergency custody of the kids, knowing she'd try to turn them against me or manipulate the situation. I had to protect them from her lies, no matter how much it hurt to even think about going to court. Her reaction was classic Lisa. When I confronted her about the accounts being frozen, she flipped out. She called me controlling, said I was ruining her life, and accused me of trying to tear our family apart. She insisted she was innocent, that she'd never cheat or steal. But I had the evidence, and I wasn't backing down. I told her she'd lied to me for months, stolen from us, and now she was trying to manipulate everyone around her to save herself. She looked at me with pure hatred, screaming that I was ruining her life, that I was a monster for doing this. I just looked back at her, feeling nothing but cold anger. That night, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the pile of documents I'd gathered. I felt exhausted, drained, but also oddly determined. I couldn't let her get away with this. I knew she'd try to fight me in court, spin stories about how I'd manipulated her or abused her. That's her style, play the victim, lie her way out of trouble. But I also knew I had the truth on my side. The ledger, the bank statements, the transfers, those were concrete, no matter what she said. I had proof. I was prepared to fight for everything, my money, my kids, my dignity. As I sat there, I realized how much she'd changed. The woman I married was gone, replaced by someone cold, selfish, and manipulative. She lied about everything, her fidelity, her intentions, her love. And now she was trying to destroy us all, including herself, to get what she wanted. I felt a mix of sadness and anger. Sad because I'd lost the woman I thought I knew. Anger because she'd betrayed me, our family, everything we built together. But deep down, I also felt a strange sense of clarity. I knew I had to stay strong for myself and for the kids. This wasn't over, not by a long shot, and I was ready to do whatever it took to get justice. Over the next few weeks, everything moved at a dizzying pace. The court dates were set, and I knew Lisa would do everything to spin her story in her favor. She was already trying to paint herself as the victim, claiming I was manipulative and abusive, an outright lie, but that's her pattern. She'd twist facts, exaggerate, and cry her way out of trouble if she had to. I stayed focused, gathering more proof, talking to my lawyer daily, and preparing myself for what I knew would be a messy battle. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude shifted from bitchy and dismissive to outright hostile. She started showing her true colors, calling me names, accusing me of trying to control her, and even trying to turn the kids against me. She told them I was mean and crazy, trying to paint herself as the victim in their eyes. It hurt so much to see her doing that, knowing she was lying to manipulate everyone around her. But I also knew I had to keep my composure. Losing my temper wouldn't help. I had to be strategic, calm, and serious. One day, I caught her in a lie. She said she had no idea where the money went, that she'd never transferred anything. But I found her email drafts where she discussed setting up the accounts and transferring funds with Tom. She'd been planning this for months. That was the moment I realized how deep her deception ran. She'd been orchestrating this entire thing, carefully covering her tracks, all while pretending to be innocent. It made me feel sick. How could she be so calculated, so cold? The emotional toll was immense. I felt betrayed, angry, and exhausted. I'd loved her for so long, and now I was watching her throw everything away, all for some affair in a stupid house. I kept asking myself, was I blind? Did I miss all the signs? Or was she just that good at hiding her true self? The more I uncovered, the more I realized how much she'd lied, manipulated, and stolen. It was like she'd been living a double life, and I was the last to find out. Her lawyer sent her a notice about the court hearing. She responded with a scathing letter, trying to discredit me at every turn. She claimed I was abusive, controlling, and mentally unstable. She even accused me of manipulating her to steal the money, which was laughable. I knew her game. She was trying to paint herself as the victim so she could get custody and keep the money. But I had the evidence, and I was ready to fight. I wasn't going down without a fight. I knew she'd try to use the kids as pawns, but I was determined to protect them from lies. On the day of the hearing, I felt a surge of anxiety. I knew this would be the defining moment. I sat in the courtroom watching her walk in with her lawyer, her face full of false confidence. I felt a strange mix of rage and sadness. Rage because she'd betrayed everything we had, and sadness because I knew that, no matter what happened, my life would never be the same. I had prepared my case meticulously, presenting the ledger, the bank statements, and all the evidence showing her theft and deception. When the judge asked her to explain the missing money, she spun a story about how she'd been under extreme stress and made mistakes, but she insisted she never intended to steal from us. She cried, pleaded, and tried to make herself look like the victim. I sat there, listening to her lies, feeling my blood boil. I knew the truth, and I knew she was trying to manipulate the court. When it was my turn, I presented the evidence clearly and calmly. No emotion, just facts. The ledger, the transfers, the emails. I told the court how she'd lied, cheated, and stolen from us. The judge listened carefully, then made a decision. She ordered Lisa to return the stolen money to pay damages and granted me sole custody of the kids, at least until we could work out a more permanent arrangement. It was a small victory in a long battle, but it felt like a huge weight lifted. Still, I knew this wasn't over. Lisa would fight back, and I had no doubt she'd try to manipulate the system further. After the court, Lisa stormed out, furious. She yelled at me, calling me every name in the book, accusing me of ruining her life. She threatened to sue me for custody, claiming I manipulated her into giving me the money, which was just more of her lies. I watched her leave, feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. I'd won this battle, but I knew the war wasn't over. She was dangerous, and I had to stay vigilant. I also knew I needed to focus on fixing my relationship with the kids, making sure they knew the truth and weren't caught in her web of lies. That night, I sat alone in my house, exhausted but relieved that I stood my ground. I'd lost a lot: my trust, my peace, the woman I loved, but I'd also gained clarity. I saw her for what she really was, a manipulative, selfish woman who'd done everything she could to destroy us. Still, I couldn't help feeling a deep sadness for what we'd lost. The betrayal was like a wound that wouldn't heal, and I wondered how I'd ever move past it. But I knew one thing for sure: I was going to fight for my kids and for myself. I'd come too far to let her win entirely. Whatever came next, I was ready. The aftermath of the court hearing left me feeling drained but also oddly relieved. I knew I'd done everything I could, laid out the facts, and protected what was left of my family, at least for now. Still, Lisa's reaction was predictably hostile. She refused to accept the court's decision, and her lawyers immediately started working on an appeal. She was furious, calling me every name under the sun, accusing me of ruining her life. and claiming I was the one manipulating her all along. It was classic Lisa, playing the victim, twisting everything to fit her narrative. In the days that followed, she ramped up her attempts to turn the kids against me. She'd call them, tell them I was controlling and abusive, and paint herself as the only real parent. I knew she'd do anything to keep the kids on her side, even if it meant lying or twisting the truth. It hurt to see her trying to manipulate them, but I also knew I had to stay strong. I spent as much time as I could with the kids, making sure they understood I loved them and that I was there for them, regardless of her lies. Meanwhile, the financial mess was far from over. Lisa's lawyers kept pushing for a settlement, trying to minimize her theft and paint her as a victim of circumstance. But I wasn't buying it. I had the evidence, her ledger, the emails, the bank transfers, and I was determined to get every cent back. I also hired a forensic accountant to help trace the stolen money and see if it was hidden somewhere else. Every day, I was more convinced that she'd planned this for a long time. She'd been so convincing when she pretended everything was normal, but I now saw her for what she really was: a liar, a thief, and a manipulator. One night, I found myself staring at her ledger again, going over the notes about the house with Tom. It hit me hard. This wasn't just about money or cheating. It was about her complete disregard for everything we'd built. I felt a mix of anger and sadness. How could she be so cold, so calculating? I'd trusted her for so long. Now I saw her as a stranger, a woman who would lie, cheat, and steal without remorse. I wondered if I'd ever truly know her again. The emotional toll was immense. I'd gone from loving her to feeling nothing but contempt. I thought about the life we'd shared, the plans, the dreams. All of it was gone now, erased by her lies and betrayal. I questioned whether I'd ever be able to forgive her or even trust her again. But I also knew that I couldn't let her destroy me completely. I had to keep fighting for my own sanity, for the kids, for what little dignity I had left. One day, she finally admitted she'd been lying about the details of the house with Tom. She claimed she'd only bought it to secure her future, that she never intended to hurt me, but I saw right through her. Her words were hollow, just more manipulation. She was desperate to save herself, to spin her lies into some kind of justification. I told her she could try to lie all she wanted, but I had the proof. The truth was out, and I wasn't backing down anymore. The legal battle dragged on, with her lawyers pushing for her to keep the house and the money, claiming I was trying to ruin her. But I had the court's backing, at least for now. I filed motions to freeze her assets further, to investigate any other hidden accounts, and to ensure she couldn't run away with the money again. I was determined not to let her get away with it, no matter how much she screamed or lied. Throughout it all, I kept a journal, writing down every event, every lie, every emotional breakdown. This process was tearing me apart, but it also helped me keep my focus. I realized I was stronger than I thought. I'd survived her betrayal, and I was going to come out of this with whatever shred of dignity I had left. I knew that in the end she'd have to face the consequences of her actions, whether in court or in her conscience. Looking back, I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile, and betrayal cuts deeper than I ever imagined. But I also learned that I'm resilient. I can survive even the worst kinds of heartbreak and deception. The hardest part is realizing that sometimes the person you love most can turn into someone you barely recognize. But I won't let her define me. I'll rebuild my life piece by piece and do everything I can to protect my kids from her lies. Because at the end of the day, that's what matters most. It's been a roller coaster, honestly. I never thought I'd be sitting here, trying to piece together what's left of my life after all this chaos. Looking back, I realize how much I've learned about trust, about betrayal, and about myself. Lisa's betrayal was a gut punch, no doubt. Finding out she cheated with Tom, stole so much money, and then lied about it all was like watching my world collapse in slow motion. But what stayed with me even more is how it pushed me to find strength. I didn't know I had. Honestly, I thought I knew her. I thought I knew us. But she turned out to be someone completely different, selfish, manipulative, and willing to destroy everything for her own gain. And yet, amid all the pain, I found clarity. I saw her true colors, and I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had to face the truth head on, no matter how ugly it was. That meant fighting for the money, fighting for the kids, and fighting to reclaim my life. The legal process was brutal. Lisa's lawyers played dirty, twisting facts, trying to paint her as the victim and claiming I was trying to manipulate her. She did her best to turn the court and the kids against me, but I stayed focused. I presented the evidence, the ledger, the bank transfers, the emails, and made sure the court saw her for what she really was. It wasn't easy. There were moments I doubted myself, moments I wanted to give up, but I kept going. I had to. Because I knew that in the end, truth and integrity mattered more than her lies. Now I've got some semblance of stability. The court ordered her to return the stolen money, and I have primary custody of the kids. It's not perfect, and I still carry the scars of this betrayal, but I'm learning to live with it. I'm rebuilding my trust in myself, and I'm learning how to be a better father, a better person. I've realized that sometimes the best revenge is just living honestly and not letting her lies define me. As I write this, I want anyone going through something similar to know, betrayal cuts deep, but you can survive it. Trust is fragile, and sometimes the people we love the most can hurt us in ways we never thought possible. But strength comes from facing those truths, from standing tall even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Don't let the betrayal turn you into someone you don't recognize. Use it as fuel to rebuild, to learn, and to come out stronger. And finally, I've learned that forgiveness isn't about her. Not really. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and pain. I won't forget what she did, but I'm choosing not to let it control me anymore. I'm moving forward, one step at a time, with my kids by my side and a renewed sense of hope. Because no matter how dark things get, there's always a way to find the light again. You just have to be willing to fight for it.